What's up guys, Kelly McKay here, aka HVAC Millionaire, right here on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to my channel, hit that notification bell, hit the like button, and leave me a comment below. Today, I'm going to talk about the 4 phases of growth in your HVAC business. I've identified 4 phases that a business owner has to go through in order to get to that next level. We all go through this, doesn't matter what stage you're at. Some people just get stuck in one of the stages, or one of the phases as I call them. So I want to go through these phases with you to help you recognize maybe which phase you're actually stuck in, so that we can help you move to the next phase. I created an acronym for this. It's called S.T.E.P. So I call it the S.T.E.P method. So S.T.E.P. The S stands for start. The T stands for transform. The E stands for expand, and the P stands for prosper. So for those of you who may not know, I've been in the HVAC business since 1996 when I got married. And in 2008, I started my business and I ran that company from the ground up for 14 years. And then I actually successfully exited my business in 2022. And since then, actually before that even happened, I've been coaching and consulting and training other HVAC business owners to be able to do the same thing in their business. Now, some of my clients want to exit their business someday, and others just want to build a legacy business. So it's up to you on what you would like to build, but it's 100% possible if you understand these phases in business and how to progress through them and get to the next phase. So let's start with the S in the S.T.E.P method, which is start. There are 2 things that move people. Typically, it's inspiration or desperation. Me, I was desperate. I was in a lot of pain. My business was suffering, and as a result, I was suffering. In all honesty, like anybody who was on my team was suffering as well. I know my wife was suffering as well because I was never home. The business just consumed my life. Although that was one of the worst periods of my life, it actually was a blessing because it allowed me to wake up and say, look, I don't have to live like this anymore. This is not how the business should be. This is not what I set out to create. So the S in the S.T.E.P method is all about starting. It's really about awareness. So we have to understand that working harder is not the solution. Working smarter is the solution. Now, I know you might hear from some other influencers that might be a bunch of bullshit. I'm here to tell you it's not bullshit. There are right ways to do things and wrong ways to do things. And in my business, I found a lot of wrong ways to do things. And because I was in so much pain, this led me to start searching for smarter ways to operate. And I found a lot of different ways to operate that dramatically increased my results. So working smarter, not harder, it's a real thing. When it comes to the S and the S.T.E.P method, it's also about identifying inefficiencies and bottlenecks and constraints that are happening in the business. Now, oftentimes, a lot of those constraints are just the business owner, the beliefs that you have, and habits that you've developed throughout your career. Habits like running the service call the exact same way you always have, doing the sales process the exact same way you always have. These become habits, and we think that we're doing them right because we used to do them for when we worked for somebody else and it seemed to work. But now that you're out on your own, it doesn't work anymore. The number one thing about starting in the S.T.E.P method, which is what the S stands for, is accepting responsibility. What that means is that blaming, complaining, justifying, excuse making for all the things that you don't have because of the actions and choices and decisions that you've made are your fault. That's a really hard thing for most people to accept. It's like that old saying, would you rather be right or would you rather get what you want? If you want, you can continue to be right and continue to get the same results. I came to the conclusion that I would rather get what I want instead of being right, which led me to becoming coachable. Now I was able to actually listen to some feedback and accept some new, more efficient, more profitable ways to do things in my business. It was at that point that I started to establish some kind of a vision. It wasn't perfect yet, but I had this idea of what was possible for me in my business, and I started to envision that. And that's great because this all happens in the start phase. Some people just stay in the start phase indefinitely. They never leave it. For those of us who take responsibility and decide that we want to create a better future for ourselves, our team, and our family, Welcome to the club, because now we can move into the T portion of the STEP method, which is transform. I also call this step the pivot. This is where you actually pivot. You've accepted responsibility. You know that there's better ways to do things because, hey, there's a lot of evidence out there to show you that a lot of other companies might be doing better than you. So when you see that and you accept responsibility, congratulations, it's time to pivot. Pivot is all about changing habits, the structure of your business, and the strategies that you've been using that are getting you the results that you're not too happy with. This is the phase, and it's a big one, where we actually start to implement repeatable processes through systems for all of our services, like sales, answering the phones, operations. Sometime during the transform phase, we are creating pricing strategies that ensure our profitability, and also control plans to make sure that it remains and it actually sticks after we implement it. We're also beginning to develop leadership skills so that we can start to share that with our employees and guide them more effectively. During this phase, we're also eliminating inefficiencies, not just in how we perform our service, but also what we do in our spare time. The faster we can get focused during this phase, the faster we'll be able to move on to the next phase, which is expand. But before we move into expand, also in the transform or the pivot phase, it's really where we start to shift from that technician mindset to a business owner mindset, which is a huge accomplishment. Next up in the STEP method is the E, which stands for expand or growth. This phase is all about hiring and optimizing and actually scaling the business. Because of all those processes we installed throughout the transform phase, this is going to set our company up financially to start hiring the right people for key roles. This is where we start to build a leadership team that can help us run the business more efficiently. We begin to strengthen our marketing presence and our marketing efforts to generate more predictable revenue. It's also really about establishing stronger customer relations for long-term retention. And in the expand phase, we're also looking at KPIs. We're refining those KPIs. We're going deeper into the numbers and your financial tracking to ensure that we're going to create some sustainable growth. Now, as I've said before, people always are just like, I need more leads, I need more leads. Well, that's the problem is if you haven't gone through the start phase and the transform phase, and you go straight to the third phase, which is increasing those marketing efforts, you're doing it in the wrong order. When you follow a process and you go through the steps in the STEP method, this is how you maximize and optimize everything you do in your company. So let's move on to phase 4 in the STEP method. The P stands for prosper, or an exit strategy. In this phase, we're talking about building wealth and creating legacy options. This is where we begin to position the business for acquisitions, for franchising quite possibly, or for just passive ownership where the owner's really not involved in any daily operations anymore. During this phase, we're also developing a succession plan that's going to allow us to transition the leadership team smoothly. At this phase, we're looking to position ourselves to create the most long-term wealth. So we're exploring some more strategic investments because the prosper phase is all about achieving financial freedom. It's allowing for new ventures or even retirement. And if you've decided to pass the business along to another family member, this is a time where we create that transition to go smoothly so that the business continues to create these long-lasting results. So there you have it, the STEP method, to start, transform, expand, and prosper. You want to follow that in that order. I've got a guide that's coming out, and I will put you on the waiting list. If you're interested, just comment guide below, and I will let you guys know when that guide is ready. When you do things in the right order at the right time, you get better results. That's why using the STEP method framework works. We have programs for all sizes of clients. We've got people who are in the start phase. We've got people in the transform phase, in the expand phase, and even the prosper phase. Depending on where you're at will depend on where we start. If you watch the training and you decide to book a call with us, I'm going to send you the STEP method guide that breaks down all 4 phases of the business. It's going to give you a lot of clarity around where you're at and where you're going. That's it, guys. Go make money. Boom.